This time, a really exciting microphone, a dynamic from Electro-Voice, the RE320. At the moment I'm using a condenser microphone. This is a shotgun and it could be quite sensitive to the sound of my room. Now the problem with audio, especially in video, is it's often a repair job. It's not a case of getting into a sound treated room and filming in there, because most of us are filming in normal rooms or outdoors where there's a load of noise. So a lot of video stuff, when you're dealing with audio, you're actually dealing with audio repair. The reason that I might think about using dynamic microphones more is because they're actually less sensitive to the sounds that are going on around them. So if you decide to use a dynamic microphone because you've got bad acoustics in your house or whatever, you're going to want to hold it close to try and eliminate those sounds. And once you hold a dynamic close, especially if it's a cardioid or a supercardioid, you're going to get much more proximity effect. So it's a kind of a balancing act. And this is where the Electro-Voice 320 comes in. And I'll tell you more about that later, because there's technology in the microphone that helps to reduce that very thing. The 320 has a cardioid polar pattern, and it comes with two responses actually. There's a switch on it where you can take it from general to kick curve. So general is the one where it says the frequency response goes from 45 Hertz to 18 kilohertz. And the kick curve has a special thing, a special dip in it put into it, where it will make the kick drum, the bass drum, sound a bit more punchy, and that goes from 45 to 18 kilohertz. Microphone has an impedance of 150 ohms. It's built like a tank and it weighs 1.5 pounds and it's 8.5 inches long. Now that's actually quite significant, because if you're using these cheap sort of stands that come from Amazon, they're going to be hard pushed to hold the weight of this thing, and very often you might have accidents where the thing is falling over because this is quite a weight. It's quite a common thing. I mean, if you get something like the Rode Podcaster, you get the same kind of thing. This physical weight of this thing is quite a lot on the end of a boom arm. So it's actually safer on a small mount in front of you, or get a much more substantial stand for this, because it is actually quite weighty. It's got an internal pop filter inside. But having said that, if you're going to speak very closely into this, I would put something over it as well, a foamy or something. The other thing about all of the RE series is that they use this variable D technology. That's really very handy, because earlier I was saying about if you want to use a dynamic microphone, you want to hold it close to get rid of external sounds and get the clarity of your voice into that microphone. They're designed to be a little bit closer. Now, when you bring a cardioid closer to your mouth, you're going to introduce proximity effect. And also, actually, by the way, if you turn your head like that, do things like this, the sound is going to suddenly disappear and come back again. Now, the thing about the variable D technology, I'm not sure how it works, but this almost behaves like an omnidirectional microphone. So if you hold it, say, there, a foot away or so, or you hold it there, very close, the proximity effect is very much less than most cardioids, although this is actually a cardioid. So you don't get so much proximity effect, and it behaves more like an omni in that respect. It is directional, but what if you put it here and you move your head around, and you're moving it around a lot, or you're moving the mic around a lot, the variable D technology seems to hold onto your voice a lot better than especially the tighter cardioid type microphones. So this is a little bit better for those people who want to fidget in front of a microphone, or just basically place it there and move around. If they move a lot, this is where it really comes in really handy. So that it does have that advantage with the variable D technology, somehow compensating for proximity effect, and also the fact that if you move around in front of it, it doesn't seem to make too much difference to the tone of the microphone. So let's see how it actually sounds. This is the sound of the Electro-Voice RE320 when held fairly close to your mouth, and I'm speaking over the top of the microphone. This is a typical position where you would put the microphone in a studio. You'd have it on a nice solid stand and it would be right in front of you, pointing at your mouth like this. You don't really want to blow directly into it, even though it's got an internal pop filter, because if I do that, you can get plosives. So this is speaking directly into it with a pop filter inside, the pop, 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 pop. See if that goes through. But this is the sound that you would get, and the nice thing about this is once you've got it this close, you're going to start eliminating the sounds of the room, and the clarity of the voice will improve because it's just close to you, and the closer you get, the more detail you're going to hopefully get into the microphone. Now the thing is, I was talking about the variable D, so if I move my head around while I'm talking and I carry on talking while I'm moving my head around, you'll find that the sound doesn't particularly, hopefully, move too much. It might move in volume, but the thing is the sound of it isn't altering too much. It gives you the impression actually that although it's a cardioid, it's actually more like an Omni because it's less sensitive to the movements and what you're doing with the microphone. And if you go up close, I'm going to lower my voice and go up close, and if I speak up now, I'm really close to the microphone. Now when you talk like that, the variable D must kick in and take a lot of that proximity effect away. So what I'm talking about is that variable D is kind of controlling, even if you're moving around or moving the microphone around, how the microphone actually sounds. So this is the RE320 from the front, this is the RE320 from the side, this is the RE320 from the rear, this is back to the side, and I'm back to the front again. And you can see that it is actually picking up more from the front than it is from the sides and rear. But this business on the front is quite weird. It's really quite a weird thing. Now the beauty of this is this microphone gives quite a powerful sound straight from the microphone with no processing, and that's the real beauty of this microphone. Now I'm going to try it with the kick drum setting. So if I get the setting here down to kick drum, now I've set it to kick drum, and this time the frequency response has been tailored hopefully to pick up a kick drum just that little bit better. So this is the sound of it now with the kick drum setting. Some people have said that they actually prefer the sound of this with the kick drum setting, with that I think it's got something sucked out down in the bass and then a boost in the bass as well, so there's a kind of a boost and a suck out somewhere down there to make kick drums sound really clear. But some people like it with the voice. So this is the sound from the front again, this is the side, this is the rear, this is the side, and this is the front. And with the kick drum setting, if I test the proximity, it might kick in a little bit more, I don't know. So if I go a little bit closer now, this is the sound of this microphone when it's close on the kick drum setting, and there might be a little bit more proximity effect. So that's the sound with the D setting, the kick drum setting. Switched it back, and now that's the sound back on the general curve. With the kick drum setting, it goes down a little bit lower in frequency. With the general curve, it's just from a bit higher up. For all intents and purposes, that makes no difference to the sound of your voice because most of your voice frequencies aren't going to be down there anyway. So that's the sound of the RE320. So to finish, I really like the RE320 a lot. It's a dynamic microphone with a slight difference. First of all, it is heavy, so if you're thinking of buying one, you're going to need a really good stand if you want to use it on video, and it's quite big looking in the video as well. It's got quite a presence. If you're going to do a podcast and just speaking, I would get the big shock mount and mount it onto the table so that it's really solid. No problem with it there. But for video, it's a question of how much microphone do you want to show in your videos. And it's a little bit heavy and bulky for using around on the move. And in a studio, if you don't mind a big microphone in front of you, that's great. That's the first thing. That's the inconvenience. But the other thing is when I was recording, I went from this shotgun microphone, which is very sensitive, to the dynamic, which you would think is very insensitive. Now on my Tascam DR70 here, I had the gain for this one on low, because the DR70 has low, medium, high, high plus, and then you got your tweaks in, with a tweaking knob. Now I had this on low, and in order to get the gain right for the RE320, I only had to go up one notch to medium, and that is the advantage of the neodymium magnets. It makes the microphone a lot more sensitive than many other dynamic microphones. So that's an advantage as far as dynamic microphones are concerned. Also, because of those magnets, the top end is more clearly defined than many dynamic microphones. So in post, you don't really have to do an awful lot to the sound. The other advantage of it is the variable D technology. You've got someone who's not used to using microphones and they wave their head around and they're moving around all the time. The variable D will invariably take control of that, and that's a handy thing to have in a studio. Plus the fact that you can get it close to your mouth in a room that's, say, very echoey or reverberant laden, and you're not going to get so much proximity effect because the variable D does take control of that as well. So you don't get that proximity effect that you get from so many dynamic microphones when you put them close up. And you do unfortunately need to get them fairly close anyway to get a decent sound from most dynamics. So it's a fabulous mic. It's a really nice mic. It works extremely well. The only other one I think that probably comes close to it that I have is the Rode Procaster. And the Procaster is a similar look. It's slightly thicker sounding, I think, than this one, and I'll probably do a comparison of it sometime later. But the RE320 is an excellent dynamic microphone. And if you're in a situation where you're worried about the sound of your room and the acoustics, and you're worried about getting it too close and getting that horrible proximity effect, or you're worried about how muffled dynamic microphones sound, the RE320 has this finished sound to it that doesn't require a lot to be done in post. And that makes it so useful in a studio situation. Hope to see you next time. Cheers for now.